All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and let us bow together, if you will. Gracious God, we are thankful once again for another day to gather together in this meeting and forum format. But our gathering is highlighted simply by your presence and your willingness to continue to use us as a part of your unfolding plan in the earth and the world. I pray now your blessing upon this meeting together. I ask your blessing upon the candidates who are offering themselves for service, and your continued blessing upon the work of this branch, that it serves our community in ways that will enhance and enlighten all of us as we live and work together as a community. Pray now that you will lead and guide us as we move forward, and we commend this time to your honor and your care. It is in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
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 Good evening.
Good evening.
The mission statement of the NAACP. The mission of the NAACP is to eliminate the political, educational, social, and economic equality of rights of all persons, and to eliminate racial hatred and racial discrimination. This is the mission of the NAACP. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The 5 candidates on the November the 2nd, 2021 Pittsburgh election ballot were invited to speak to us today. Candidates, most of us cannot vote for you. However, we are very concerned about what takes place within the corporate city limits of Pittsburgh. Each candidate will have 5 to 7 minutes to explain what is a major issue besides the water quality facing the town in the next few years and what you propose to do. What are your proposed plans for affordable housing or lack of affordable housing? And what would you recommend to address these issues? Then you will have 3 minutes to finish up and answer our question. One question has been sent to me. It appears that most, if not all, the new growth is occurring on the east side of Pittsburgh. Many long-term residents are concerned that there will be no little growth or development on the west side of Pittsburgh, thereby creating 2 Pittsburghs, one east and the other west. Consequently, we are asking, what are the immediate 2 to 4 year development plan for West Pittsburgh? We will hear from you in the order you respond to the letter sent to each of you. The order will be Cindy Perry, Michael Fiocco, Jim Nass, Jane Vose, and Pamela Ballin. At this time, please mute your device and remain muted unless you are speaking. Raise your hand or put questions in chat. Members, after the candidate forum, please remain for a short meeting. Now we will hear from Cindy Perry, candidate for mayor.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. I am Cindy Perry, candidate for mayor of Pittsburgh. And if my name sounds familiar, that's because I was the mayor of Pittsburgh from 2015 to 2019. In 2019, I chose not to run again because I wanted to concentrate on our local domestic violence agency, Second Bloom. Now I'm running again because people urged me to do so, and because many of the same issues are still on the table, waiting for strong leadership. While I was mayor, I worked diligently on issues such as clean and safe drinking water, support for small businesses downtown, affordable housing, climate initiatives, communication with citizens and other elected officials, and environmental concerns such as recycling, pesticides, and herbicides. Now, communication is vital. It's vital so that citizens will know the issues before the town, for downtown and at Chatham Park. As mayor, I walked downtown with my dog Coco almost every day, checking in with folks along the street, at the barber shop, at the early morning restaurants, getting to know you all, what concerned you, and what you celebrated. I had daily interactions to make government your government. One of the things I want to do is to create a community cabinet, an informal gathering of Pittsboro people to study issues, stay informed on matters about that are before the town board, and to get people, especially young people, interested in government. We need young candidates with vitality to represent all our communities. And it's time for young people to take positions with and for our town. Local government has the greatest impact on our daily lives, and I want people to know more about what's going on. We have been asked to address issues facing the town except for water quality, which will undoubtedly be the focus of several questions during our question and answer period. But water quality is a primary issue, and the safety of our town, our children, our vulnerable population is at stake. 3 times during my terms as mayor, I called on scientists from our state's universities to our town board meetings to give status reports on our water. The Haw River Assembly, our local watch guard over drinking water, came to the board many times, speaking for action against upstream contaminants and sludge discharged into the Haw River. The $3 million being spent on the Pittsboro water plant is going to help with some of the contaminants, but it is not a complete solution. We need the state of North Carolina to recognize how unfair it is for Pittsboro citizens to have to spend millions of dollars removing chemicals which upstream neighbors such as Greensboro and others have dumped into the Haw River. We need to act on the recommendations of the Water Quality Task Force and find ways to give every citizen safe water. We need action on a new water plant on the banks of the Jordan Lake and a master plan for all of the utilities. As for affordable housing, as mayor, I cut the ribbon on the Belmont affordable housing property behind Lowe's Home Improvement. And as soon as it opened, its 77 units were filled, and immediately there was a long waiting list. I have worked with Habitat for Humanity, inviting their director, Jerry Wharton, to address the board and to be on the Affordable Housing Task Force. But perhaps the most urgent issue about affordable housing is this. Chatham Park wants the town to approve only 5% of their 22,000 residences as workforce and affordable housing. When I was mayor, Chatham Park proposed a similar percentage and the board felt that it was insufficient. I agree, it is insufficient. And most distressing is Chatham Park's wanting to have its affordable housing off-site, not on the 7,200 acres it already owns. This is unacceptable, and Jerry Wharton of Habitat thinks so too. With respect to downtown businesses, I have and will continue to advocate for a variety of retail businesses downtown. Our downtown area is a destination for many people in surrounding communities, and we need to keep it vital. When I walk through downtown, I'm impressed by the variety of businesses, but we need to increase the diversity of our downtown shops, especially so they can compete with the new businesses coming to Chatham Park. On climate change, I had the pleasure of attending, and speaking at the Mayor's Climate Change Conference in Chicago in 2018. A thrill of a lifetime, President Obama spoke to us at that conference, urging mayors across the United States to work for climate responsibility. In small towns like ours, little things count, like using less herbicides and pesticides and dealing more efficiently with recycling and solid waste. Now, these are not glamorous topics, but they are important and necessary for our environment. In closing, I'm dedicated to positive Pittsboro leadership and diplomatic solutions for issues that divide us. I have been an independent thinker and a strong leader for our town. I look forward to serving you and our town again. And I am asking for your vote for Cindy Perry for mayor on November 2nd, or early voting, which starts this Thursday. I will be glad to greet you at early voting on October the 14th through the 30th, the street fair on the 30th, and on election day, November 2nd. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions for candidate Cindy Perry for mayor? If so, put in the chat or raise your hand. Okay, Miss Irene, I see your hand up. Miss Well, I think you're muted.
Sorry, couldn't find the right button. Probably this needs to be asked to all the candidates, but Cindy, you know, you mentioned the price tag on the water improvement in the water treatment, 3.4 mil. Do you know what percentage of that cost is going to come back on consumers, on customers? And well, let's start there.
I don't know. I have not been in the budget process. So I think the money was taken from in funds that were set aside for emergencies. But one of the things is that we really, there was a mistake made years ago about the amount of money that Chatham Park paid to the town for services as we all built up into the infrastructure that was going to become part of our new big town. And so the money that Chatham Park has paid us for infrastructure has not even touched the amount that it's cost us to hire extra staff and to participate in the infrastructure process. So it is an unfortunate thing, no going back on that, but it makes it even more compelling that when Chatham Park comes to fruition with businesses and jobs and things like that, that we need to make sure that our budget is at that point favoring the reimbursement to the town of costs that we've really had to expend ahead of time.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, my screen can't tell if there's anybody else with their hands up, so.
At this point,
Mr. Parker, can you tell?
yeah, at this point, I don't believe that there are. So
Okay.
if you want to move to the next candidate, I think that would be appropriate.
Wonderful, thank you. Now we will hear from Commissioner Mike Fiocco, candidate for the town commissioner.
Good afternoon, all. I am Michael Fiocco, a member of the current Board of Commissioners. This is my 12th year in service, and I'm choosing to run again for another 4 years. I think other than the water quality issue that we know is critical to the town, critical also to the town is sewer capacity. It has been for quite some time. Without sewer capacity, there will be no growth in the town, and therefore no growth and opportunities for new businesses, for new residents, other than the eastern side, as is mentioned, and that's primarily due to Chatham Park. Chatham Park entered into a public-private partnership with the town in order to increase the capacity of our current sewer allocation to 2 million gallons a day. They are paying their equivalent share for 1.25 million gallons a day. The other 750,000 gallons a day will be to the town of Pittsboro. I think that will be very quickly exhausted, but it is the key to having an opportunity for the western portion of the town to develop as well. I don't think there's going to be a lack of interest in developing the west side of town. The community college is there, and I think that's going to be a big generator of activity. I can tell you from my civil engineering background that sewering the western side of town is far more easy than sewering the eastern part of town. Based on topography, it allows for a more cost-effective ability to extend sewer services to the west than to the east. So I think that is key. I think also in key is working with our regional partners. We do come by this 2 million gallons a day by having a partnership with the city of Sanford. They continue to have tremendous resources as far as sewer treatment capacity. They are working with the mega sites and the town to bring water to the mega sites, and that would provide the town an opportunity to increase sewer flow back to Sanford. So I think it's key that we keep a regional eye on how our infrastructure grows, and sewer is a key component. For affordable housing, I was on and still serve on the Pittsboro Task Force. We developed a series of recommendations to the town board, and the gist of those recommendations is we are recognizing that the private marketplace is not producing affordable housing. And one way that we think we can be successful is to get the community to act as an investor with these developers and to incentivize them in ways that they can find it in their business model to create affordable housing. I think it's a very promising idea. Back in 2015, when Chatham Park was proposing their master plan, it was in a time of crisis for our economy. And they were one of a few private-public partners that was remaining standing, able and willing to collaborate with the town. And their master plan was, I would say, insufficient at the time. And a group of us were instrumental in creating this system of additional elements that required them to adopt prior to their ability to develop greater than 15% of their commercial and greater than 5% of their residential. So it was a real good tool to make sure that we were going to get the things into the agreement with Chatham Park. And it included affordable housing. It included public art. It included public facilities where we were able to get them to agree that they will be donating land to schools. They will be donating land for fire and police. So all in all, I think it turned out to be a very good way to, one, get them approved and in the town of Pittsboro, but still follow through with the critical items that we think are to a healthy community. So they've adopted 11 of the 12 elements, and the 12th is affordable housing. I've been working with them extensively, trying to get them to recognize the value. And of course, they are struggling with the economic models, but we've got a proposal on the table. It is to be discussed this evening, or was to be discussed this evening at the town's board meeting. And it is going to subsequently be called for a public hearing so that we can have a robust discussion in the next 2 weeks and have them present and have the board and the public comment on their affordable housing proposal. I do believe that the 5% they're proposing is insufficient. It still is far in excess of the 1% that they originally proposed, I think back in 2017. So I think we're headed in the right direction, but we've got to follow through and make it the quality affordable housing element that we know it can be.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Commissioner Michael Fiocco?
Irene has a question.
Okay.
And you are currently muted, Irene.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to be hogging the questioning here, but as a senior myself who lives in senior housing, when you're talking about affordable housing, is there much discussion about future housing for our aging population, particularly those living here now who are not moving in from out of the area from frequently high-paying backgrounds? For people like myself coming from more modest backgrounds, is that be a part of the conversation now? Because what we have Walnut Grove,
Yeah.
and I think that's it.
It is part of the conversation. That is part of the suite of housing styles that fits the model of affordable housing. There are agencies that take advantage of the tax credits that the state of North Carolina provides to specifically develop senior housing at the affordable level. So yes, that will be part of the suite of housing types that I think Pittsboro is going to look to have developed. And that is something that Chatham Park has talked about in the past, about a successful model for providing affordable housing.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? Okay, then I'm going to move on. Now we will hear from Mayor Jim Nass, candidate for mayor.
Thank you, Mary. Good afternoon, all, and thank you all that are listening in. And we really appreciate you putting this together. 2 years ago, I ran for the position of mayor because I was troubled about the state of town management and about the abilities of our town staff to deal with the issues that were before us. And so I ran for those reasons and came into office having worked as chair of the ABC board, as chair of the Additional Elements Committee for Chatham Park, and then chair of the Affordable Housing Task Force. So we've been successful in getting new town management of a very high quality into Pittsboro. And our staff is now eager, creative, anxious to be at work, and doing fine work on behalf of the citizens of Pittsboro. I'm running again because there are many solutions that we've arrived at over the last years that need to be implemented. We need to implement the water treatment plant upgrades in order to provide perfectly safe water to our citizens. We are working hard with congressional staff as well as state staff in finding ways to have money from the federal level and from the state level help us with the cost of upfitting and upgrading the water treatment plant. And the situation with the water treatment plant is that we ran a number of tests to decide on the best solution and ended up with one that will remove 100% of the forever chemicals, the PFAS and the PFOS. We still will have the problem of what to do with that stuff once we take it out of the water. We don't put anything in the water that's dangerous. That happens upstream. So if we put the materials back into the water, we wouldn't be adding anything that wasn't already there, but we would create a burden on our downstream partners. So we've been working closely with Congressman Price, Representative Reeves, and others to find ways to obtain funds from both federal, state level, and with some of our partners, particularly downstream, to help with the cost that will be associated with retrofit of the water treatment plant. But that is, in fact, a high priority. Michael mentioned the line to Sanford. I was going to board meetings as a resident of Pittsboro for years, and every time I went there, there was a discussion of Sanford. But nothing really happened in terms of getting anything to the state where we were ready to do some things. Well, now we have obtained right of way for the line to Sanford, except for one location that we're still working with. We're in constant contact with Sanford and our other partners in really coming to grips with the long-term water and sewer needs of the town of Pittsboro. And so I think that those are very critical to our future and for every resident within the town. As I told you, I was chair of the Affordable Housing Task Force and also chair of the Chatham Park Additional Elements, where we considered affordable housing. As far as the Affordable Housing Task Force is concerned, we met with affordable housing builders, people who actually go in and develop the affordable housing, to ask them, what would it take to get you excited about coming into Pittsboro and building affordable housing? And we listened carefully. One of those builders was Third Wave Housing, and we opened and filled up just in the last couple months, the retreat at Pittsboro down by the post office. That filled up almost immediately, only illustrating the need that we have for affordable housing in a wider perspective. The Chatham Park affordable housing element, as Commissioner Fiocco told you, is before the board. The plan is to schedule that for a public hearing so that citizens and nearby residents can examine the plan, can comment on the plan, and have open access to that plan. Again, the proposal that we have in front of us is inadequate, and we will continue to work with Chatham Park until we get exactly what is needed for Pittsboro. That is our pledge, and that's what we're going to do. The Affordable Housing Task Force adopted a motto, if you will, that anyone who wants to work and live in Pittsboro should be able to afford to do so regardless of their circumstances. And that remains our goal moving forward today, tomorrow, and into the future. The other thing that has been on my agenda since becoming mayor of Pittsboro is to see what we could do to lower the divide between people in Pittsboro and in the surrounding areas. It's been my experience that we unite, almost anything is possible. If we divide, it becomes very difficult. So right after I became mayor, I met with Bob Pearson from the NAACP at a little coffee shop here in town. And he told me what was being done in terms of trying to identify and really write the true history of race in Chatham County. And I took back to the board in one of my first board meetings a resolution to support the efforts of the NAACP to write that true and honest history of Chatham County. And I was pleased just not very long ago when Mary and her staff put together the wonderful memorial for Eugene Daniel, who was lynched right here in Pittsboro 100 years ago. It was a moving experience and sort of coming full circle in terms of our efforts. The town of Pittsboro was the first government entity to endorse and support the initiative that Bob and Mary had put together and others to write this true history of Pittsboro. We need to be totally honest with each other about what that history was and what our future together is going to be like. Because little progress happens when we divide, but if we stay united, we can do almost anything. And so that's been a goal of mine since mayor and will continue to be so if I am reelected. The west side of town is in some ways dependent upon some decisions that the county has to make. They own a good deal of property over on the west side. And if they continue to centralize their activities in a different location, some of that property surely might come available. And we are committed that affordable housing will be on the west side, on the east side, in Chatham Park, and wherever we can find places to put it that makes sense. We think that that is one of the really critical things that we've got to do. So my key priorities going forward are twofold. One, implementation of solutions that we have in hand. These solutions are ready to go, ready to be put into practice and improve the lives and well-being of our residents. The second thing that's on my agenda is to bring to fruition the affordable housing element for Chatham Park and the ordinance for the town, so that we can begin to increase, build, and provide high quality affordable housing into the future. And I thank you all for your time, and I appreciate you listening, and we'll be happy to take any of your questions.
Are there any questions for Mayor Jim Ness?
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay. Now we will hear from candidate Jane Vos. He's running for town commissioner.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me here and for giving me this opportunity today. As the newcomer, I'd like to take a minute and just more thoroughly introduce myself. I grew up in New Hampshire and I moved to North Carolina while I was still in the Army. I loved it so much that I've made it my home. I'm the father of 2 sons. I've owned and operated my own company that I started from scratch in 2001. I lived in Chatham County for nearly 20 years and Pittsburgh for a little over 2 years now. I love this town and I've watched its growth. I'd love to be more engaged, which is why I'm here today. I thank you for the opportunity to let me speak. While I cannot yet tout any accomplishments that I've done yet for Pittsburgh, I do bring a fresh perspective, enthusiasm, and the ability to learn. I talk to people in this town every day, and I plan to continue to be the voice of the people. I'm regularly hearing that citizens feel left behind in this town. I plan to bring more transparency and inclusion to these discussions. I feel like there are a great deal of things underway. There are great things underway, but we can't forget about the existing people. This town has been so busy dealing with Chatham Park that they haven't had time to deal with the issues in our old areas of town. I'd like growth to pay for itself and not ride on the back of existing citizens. The most important or the most pressing concerns for me are obviously clean water, smart growth, and the preserving of our downtown Pittsburgh. And I'm asking for your vote.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions for candidate Jane Vos?
I see no hands raised and nothing in the chat.
Okay,
Thank you for your time, everybody.
thank you. Now we will hear from Commissioner Pam Ballin, candidate for town commissioner.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And it's great to see everyone today. And again, I certainly do appreciate this opportunity and your request to take part in this particular forum. Beginning with the information in terms of why I want to continue as a commissioner. I have been a commissioner since 2005, and I want to continue the work in which we have started. This information, as a commissioner, there are a lot of things which we have to do, and I look forward to continuing to do that. Basically, it is just not just a time when you can just do, or you have to work with not only your board, you have to work with the citizens, you have to work with the developers, you have to work with your manager. So basically, this is an ongoing process. The citizens, we certainly want to hear from them at every opportunity, and we indeed do hear from our citizens. We get emails from them quite often. Before we had to go virtual, there was an opportunity for them to speak at our meetings and provide input at any time they would like. This is really an open government. And as a commissioner, I certainly believe that that is what we need to always do and always keep in mind. because this is a democracy, and that is what we always strive to always promote. So in reference to the issues here in Pittsburgh, there are ongoing issues with affordable housing, of course, just as it is in just about every city, town, and county in the United States. That is not a simple issue to resolve. However, we have been trying to resolve this as an ongoing for a time period, a long time period now. I am a part of the Pittsburgh Affordable Housing Task Force, in which we, the former Mayor Cindy Perry, established that particular group and requested our presence or participation in that group. And again, I was part of that. And that was, we looked at tax incentives, we looked at other means of attempting to obtain affordable housing. We will be working with developers. We have incentives for as well, just to name a ongoing process. We're working on that ordinance now as well. In reference to Chatham Park and affordable housing, they have presented a request to us with that information. However, at this particular point, it is not acceptable. So therefore, of course, we will be listening to our citizens as well as our town manager and us and the fellow commissioners and mayor as well in reference to how to update and correct any if you have concerns with. Also, which is very, again, very important. So basically, we will review all of that, and then we will come to terms in reference to affordable housing, which is very important. Now, affordable housing cannot just be in one particular area. It's always been proposed that it will be intermingled in other developments within the town. So that is not to establish it at one place or the other place, but to intermingle it with other areas. So basically, that is what our proposal is. And the developers that we have spoken with, that is their proposal as well, because you don't concentrate affordable housing in one particular area. Just so, but again, that is one of my main concerns. My next concern, of course, is with jobs. We need some jobs here in the town of Pittsburgh, economic development, and we need good paying jobs. The way to achieve that, we actually need to work not only with the high school in terms of their curriculum to see in what direction they're going so that they can send students out prepared to obtain these good, well-paying jobs. We have to work with the high school as well as the community college. The community college is a great source in reference to providing learning to our students. And then, of course, we have UNC, we have all of these universities around. So we can certainly go to UNC, look at their curriculum, go to North Carolina A&T, look at what curriculum they have. We need to actually bring things like that to the town of Pittsburgh so that our individuals, our children, will be willing to come back to live in Pittsburgh so that they can have jobs and opportunities here. So basically, those are some of our major problems. In addition to water, because it was indicated we didn't really want to discuss the water quality issue, but of course we have to mention that because it is of major concern, and we are doing all that we can to get that situation under control. Now, we are not the individuals here in Pittsburgh that are contributing to that. That is from the upstream. Someone upstream is is putting some type of contaminants that has not specifically been identified who it is, and don't exactly know, but we know that stream down here to us. So basically, though, that is one major things that we have to do. Clean water is a major priority here in the town of Pittsburgh, and we are currently certainly working on that. We have a GAT system, which we're trying to install that should be able to eliminate or take care of some of those contaminants. But let's make one thing clear, is that those contaminants, well, the state of North Carolina does not indicate that those contaminants they don't control those particular contaminants. So basically, those contaminants and the individuals need to not only address it to us, but address state and federal, because those are the individuals that can make a change in reference to regulating and in reference to making sure that there is funds to try to clean that and to indicate that you have to meet a certain criteria in reference to distributing or releasing treated water into the system. So basically, those are the individuals that make the law in reference to the water. That is not made in the town of Pittsburgh. So that is where we need to also focus, state and the federal. If they indicate that those contaminants are to be regulated, then they can indicate they can send us funding to do that. But at this time, based on state requirements, Pittsburgh has clean water based on the state. But there are these contaminants which are there, and we certainly look for individuals to give us feedback in reference to that. That's why we've got putting those systems in place to try to take care of all of that. So, and then after that, we also have had a study which indicates there's something else we can do to clean it even further, and we hope to go forward with that as well. But all of that, of course, depends on funding. Now, in reference to taxes and in reference to livable properties being taxed, it's all about basically the market value of that particular property. So if the market value says it's that, then it will be taxed even if it's not livable. And I think the other thing I need to mention is that, again, not only do I work on the Pittsburgh Affordable Housing Task Force, but I also am a member of the Chatham County Affordable Housing Housing Committee. And in doing that, we have established through the commissioners a housing trust fund. And in that trust fund, there is an application you have to complete in order to get funding in terms of updating homes or in terms of trying to help these build homes to a certain degree. But of course, there's not those great funding in that particular trust fund. However, we have certainly distributed some funds. So there are things going on with affordable housing in the town of Pittsburgh and in Chatham County as well. And I work with those individuals, and they are citizens. They're not just elected officials. So basically, I do applaud that. And again, those are important things for us. And we have probably too numerous to go forward and explain all of the things that in the town of Pittsburgh that we're trying to do to help our citizens, because that is our main priority. We serve the citizens of the town of Pittsburgh, the state of North Carolina, Chatham County, and the federal United States of America. So thank you again for your time, and I certainly again do appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Commissioner Pamela Ball? Oh, Carl Kajerga's hand is up. Okay, Carl. Carl, you're muted.
I'm unmuted now, sorry. Could the other candidates have a crack at the excellent questions that Irene Wells has asked? The candidates who have not fielded those questions yet. Just have to note that Pittsburgh has gotten national recognition for its poor water quality. I am sorry that the federal government has not recognized some of these pollutants. Maybe that was under the Trump administration, I'm not sure.
I didn't hear.
Did you not hear me?
Miss Irene, can you repeat your question that you had earlier? Are you still on?
I am.
Okay.
I think the two things are how much is the average citizen customer going to pay for the improvement in the water system, which is desperately needed. We all recognize that. But how much of that's going to come back to the average person in Pittsboro? And then the second was about housing. My concern is housing for ordinary seniors who can't afford the little tiny houses up at Chatham Park, etc. If you need to clarify further, I will.
That's good, Miss Irene. This is Pamela Baldwin again.
Uh-huh.
So in terms of how much, we're hoping that that will not be an increase. We're hoping that. So basically, I cannot say because we're seeking funding from the federal government as well as the state. So we're hoping that it will not affect the customers. That is certainly our hope. We would not want to put that on our customers. So that's what we're seeking. As to housing, certainly our seniors are very, very important, and we will not leave them behind. So seniors are included in that in terms of affordable housing. They are included as well. That is one of the group as well. Okay.
Thank
you.
If I might jump in just for a moment here. A little while ago, myself and the town manager met with Congressman Price, and we took him on a tour of the water plant. And then we were able to come back and sit down and chat a bit. And Congressman Price agreed to put in an earmark for the upgrade that we will need to our water treatment plant. And he is pushing very hard to see to it that that earmark actually goes through. And if that happens, as we expected it will, and if some funding that we've been working on with the state comes about, our hope would be that this upgrade to our water plant will not fall on the backs of the people of Pittsboro, that we will have funding that from outside that will help us do this without doing that. And beyond that, as I mentioned, once we remove these contaminants from the water, we still have to do something with them.
Yeah.
And if we put them back in the water, we're not adding anything that isn't already there. But on the other hand, the downstream partners then have to do some things. And so we're trying to work, I've been trying to work with our downstream partners to see if they'd be willing to share a part of the cost of taking that additional step so that they don't have to go through the same process again themselves. And so we're hopeful these various funding sources and some of the partnerships that we're developing will make it so that the burden of the cost doesn't fall on our ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I addressed the housing question earlier, so I'll address the cost of the water improvements. As Commissioner Baldwin and Mayor Nass have said, we are seeking as a town funds from other sources. It's a very expensive project, but our water and sewer system is part of what is known as the enterprise fund. Taxes do not go to that fund, so you can't raise taxes to raise revenue within the enterprise fund. It must come from the rate structure of the users and system development fees that are permitted by the state to be charged for developers to get access to the water and sewer resources that the town has. So I think it's an accurate word to say burden, that the burden is on the town of Pittsboro and its citizens to pay for the improvements that we're seeking if in fact we fail or are unable to obtain other sources of revenue. I think we've done a good job of appealing to the state and federal government our case that it is a burden unfairly placed on a town of 4,500 people to have to extract this material at a cost of $3.4 million as an initial phase. as we continue to grow, that cost will also continue to grow because that's only treating the amount of water that we presently are processing in the town. And as we grow, we will have to process more. Cost will continue to escalate. So we're seeking other funds, but without those other funds, the burden is going to be on the users of the system in Pittsburgh.
Okay, are there any other questions for any of the candidates? I see Rose has her hand. Oh, yes, Miss Irene.
I'm sorry. On what you just said, Mr. Fiocco. Legally, is Guilford County, can they not be held accountable for being the source of the contaminant, so much of the contaminants?
That is a conversation that the board and our staff is having, and it is inconclusive at this time that we can truly and accurately identify the sources. So the county and the city of Greensboro, they are not necessarily, as far as we know, contributing, but it is coming from their facilities where it appears as though other users are discharging the material into their system. So it is very difficult right now to discern who is the culpable party.
Right.
Yes, and I might add that the EPA has designated, for example, these forever chemicals as probable causes, cancer-causing, but they set the amount that can be put in the water at a very high rate. And so we have water coming in with rates that meet EPA standards, but are still unsafe for our citizens in our judgment. My concern is that if, as the EPA has indicated, these are potential cancer-causing materials, then by definition, that means there's some genetic mutation happening that allows the cancer to take hold. And so that has been of great concern to me. We were, I can tell you that the EPA has taken probably 25% of their air people and put them on water. And the new EPA commissioner is, of course, a North Carolinian and knows well the issues that the state faces in terms of these kinds of chemicals. So, so there's that, plus the fact that we have met, as Commissioner Fiocco explained, to sort out the idea of whether or not we can hold accountable some folks, either that are the polluters or that manufacture the materials that are being put into use and end up in places like our water. And so it's a kind of a complex, multifaceted approach, but we're all working very hard to see if we can't get it implemented in such a way that we have our clean water and it doesn't overburden our citizens.
If I may add, Irene, the state law gives municipalities like Greensboro and Burlington, and Reidsville also is involved in this, a qualified immunity, so we can't directly sue them and recover anything. That's why state funding and federal funding becomes so important, is that you just cannot go upstream and just sue everybody. But what is possible would be if we were able to track the contaminant, which again is another very complex issue as to whether it's X or Y company putting it into the system. It is still nonetheless Greensboro's responsibility to do what is referred to as industrial pretreatment. And that industrial pretreatment is not taking out the chemicals that are so dangerous. And these unregulated chemicals are indeed unregulated. So that adds to the mix and makes the efforts with the state yay even more important. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay. I see Rose Casno, hand.
Yeah, and Miriam, we also have several questions in the chat.
Okay.
Questions as well.
Can you give the questions, please, sir?
Yes, I will just take them sequentially. The
Okay.
first one is, we've talked a lot about affordable housing. In a new city, is there a recommended percentage of affordable housing that provides a standard? For the speakers today, what percentage will you push for in Chatham County as they build 22,000 new homes in the years ahead? And that's for all the candidates.
Since I started the cycle, allow me, I believe that in my remarks, I did state that Chatham Park was looking at 5%. There are jurisdictions through North Carolina that are upwards of 15%. I think that's the greatest amount that I've seen in the neighboring communities. So somewhere between 10 and 15 is probably a reasonable amount. It is also going to depend on the split between workforce housing, which would be housing for police, teachers, nurses, professions that are much less income related, that would allow, so it's going to be very important to see the split between workforce housing and truly affordable housing, which is based on a percentage of income and has other complex requirements. So it, I would certainly be in favor of between 10 and 15%, preferably 15.
Yes, I think too, it's important to recognize that there are various levels of affordable housing, from very low income to low income to moderate income and on up to workforce housing, as has been presented. And we have been looking at a mix of all of those categories, so that we are looking not only just at workforce housing, but also looking at the low income and the very low income housing capabilities. And so much of that depends upon the annual median income for the HUD statistical area that we find ourselves in. And so we are tied up with the same statistical areas, for example, Chapel Hill. And at least for the time being, although that won't last forever, but for the time being, that median income in Chapel Hill is higher than the median income perhaps in Chatham County. So we're trying to figure out how to adjust the numbers in such a way to take that into consideration. But certainly 5% is much too low, and somewhere in that neighborhood of 10 and 12 upwards. And it also depends too on the kind of places that are being proposed to put the affordable housing. We want these mixed in. I envision a situation 10 years from now that you could drive through Chatham Park or through other places in Pittsburgh, and you would not know what was regular housing and what was affordable housing. And if we do it right, that's a possibility that we can achieve.
Well, I'll weigh in on the question. Yeah, I think there is 3 towns in the state of North Carolina that have an inclusionary zoning ordinance that requires a percentage of the housing to be affordable. I'm familiar with Chapel Hill. I've been involved in a couple of projects there as a consultant on affordable housing issues. And they do have a standard at 15%, but oftentimes there is room within the permitting process to negotiate and to provide other incentives. So they provide sometimes less in exchange for a payment in lieu, which can go to the housing trust that then helps facilitate additional affordable housing. In Pittsburgh, we had a rezoning case recently come through, And one of the incentives that we think is important for developers to incorporate affordable housing is to provide them what's called a density bonus. So if you can build 10 houses on a particular piece of property through the zoning ordinance, there's the ability to say, well, if you'll put affordable housing out there, then you can build 15 of them. It helps the financial model of building infrastructure so that they don't have to get as the price point on every lot to enable affordable housing to be developed. And with that developer found 8% a palatable number. So that's part of what we're working with. And 8% seemed to be very doable from that developer's perspective. So I like to trust the marketplace to help inform what is able to be done and what isn't. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have willing partners to provide affordable housing, it will be a struggle, and I think it will produce far less housing in the long run. And just as a point of reference, if 22,000 dwelling units were built in Chatham Park and 8% of them were affordable, that's close to 1,800 units.
Okay.
I'd like to respond to that. And also, basically, I think that we would be looking at, in terms of Pittsburgh, which I'm hoping for would be anywhere from 10 to 15% of affordable / and it could be a workforce housing as well, because that is part of the affordable housing type situation. We're just not looking at those individuals just affordable, but affordable can also mean workforce. People like teachers, people like families, which have a lot of children, one parent working, one parent stay-at-home mother, stay-at-home father, things such as that, so that they can be able to afford to live in a particular townhouse, apartment, or small house. Let me say, in Pittsburgh, a good example of workforce housing, which is Powell Place. They have townhouses, they have condos, they have cottages, they have a senior apartment complex that was built through federal, but not federal funds, but it's a grant, and they have apartments. So that is a mixture of different housing. That's a mixture in terms of workforce, where individuals can live there in an affordable manner. So I think that Powell Place is a great example for a situation in terms of having different homes affordable, because there are homes that are very expensive there in that particular area as well. And again, it's a mixture, and it's a great example. So basically, those are the type things that I'm looking for in reference to the town of Pittsburgh, in reference to affordable and workforce housing.
If I might jump in, this is James Vose.
Yes, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I think we need housing for workers, town employees, teachers, police, and first responders right here in Pittsburgh. I believe that the recommendations of Habitat for Humanity, as well as the agreement by Briar Chapel in the past, was 15%. And I think that seems like a very appropriate precedent.
Okay, thank you. I see Rose Kasner hand up. Rose, can you give us the question, please?
Sure. Thank you. I have a couple of questions. I don't actually live in the town of Pittsburgh. I live in Farrington Village. And one of the things I have some trouble imagining is going from a town of 4,400 or whatever you are now to a town of over 60,000, which you will become with Chatham Park. And apparently another new development has just been approved south of Chatham Park that may end up being a 55+ community. I think that's within the town. And my questions have to do, and I think Mayor Nass mentioned this, how do those of you in the city and those of us outside but still in Chatham County work together. Specifically, 15501 gets more dangerous every day as traffic picks up and goes faster and faster. And we have very limited numbers of police who can enforce that. And likewise, I believe it was Michael who mentioned wastewater. To me, roads and wastewater and regular water are just essentials that the government is expected to provide. And I guess my question is, how are you going to, approving more and more development? I believe in development, have no problem with that, but I don't believe in development if the infrastructure is not present to meet it. And so you've already talked about the lack of affordable housing in Pittsburgh, but to me, there's a lack of really all the basic infrastructure needs. So if anyone who wants to can jump in on that.
Sure.
I'll be glad to start. Again, if, I can't help but think about the fact that in the 1970s, while I was here and on the county planning board, everybody was very fearful about this new development that was going to come in called Farrington. And it was really with great trepidation that the Pittsburgh folks viewed this big, massive development. Fortunately enough, Chatham Park is not going to develop overnight. It's going to give us an opportunity over the 40 to 50 year build out, and they may never have 22,000 homes, to be able to blend and accommodate this section into the actual annexed into the town of Pittsburgh. It will be a massively large town, but already there are plans to interconnect parks and town roads and greenways and infrastructure so that it will not be a totally separate little group. The other story is that when Farrington did come in, those of you out there became real champions for the town of Pittsburgh. You come to you run the Habitat for Humanity store, you volunteer with the hospice group, you read to the kids at the elementary schools. The resources that move in are just incredible. And the people that will move into Chatham Park are going to be just as devoted to our little town, I think, as you all have been. And people will pull together because they'll know that that makes a better living community. So thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Yes, I think that the other thing that is occurring, not only within Chatham Park, but throughout, is the long range look at the kind of roadways that we are going to need, how we can do some things that so people that want to, everybody that comes doesn't have to be funneled right through our traffic circle. If they're not coming into Pittsburgh, there's a way for them to get around and to avoid that. There's a project that's on the books to widen 15501. If you take 15501 very often and you drive clear from here to Durham, you will notice the enormous growth in terms of buildings all along 15501. And it is of concern how we're going to manage that over time. But here in Pittsburgh, we have extremely good relations with DOT, and we've been able to work with them in taking a look at our future road needs and building that into the process as we build out. And so I think that will go a long ways to help facilitate the absorption of the growth. And then the second thing is, from the very beginning of Chatham Park, I, as a resident of Pittsburgh, advocated for the idea that we were very fortunate as a community to have a chance to help shape that development, not just have it occur on our doorstep and have nothing to say about it. And I think that's really been proven out as we move forward and really work together. So there's only one Pittsburgh. There's not like, okay, here's a Pittsburgh and here's another. No, we're all family. We're all part of Pittsburgh. and the ETJ is included in that family. And so I think the work that's going on right now on planning that infrastructure, both on the north side and the south side, is going to pay huge dividends in handling this growth in a reasonable and appropriate manner. So thank you.
If I may,
Yes.
with regard to traffic, my thought would be that I'd like to see impact studies for every new development as it's proposed. And then that we listen to the recommendations of the planning board. They just unanimously recommended to not rezone the large area south of the town, yet the board approved it.
Interesting.
Well, I would like to weigh in as well. And the way infrastructure gets built today is typically that the developer builds it. Developer builds the roads, the water lines, the sewer lines, and then dedicates those facilities back to the town and or the NCDOT. The NCDOT doesn't take water and sewer. That is the municipal responsibility. But so that is the way infrastructure gets built. It's not the burden of the citizen. It is a part of the town's built infrastructure that ultimately that they have to maintain. Yes, every bit of roadway and every bit of water and sewer line has got to be approved by the town staff. And so the sizes of those devices, the capacity of those devices are approved, and they do impact studies, as Mr. Voss said, when analyzing the traffic impacts to a community. So this is all part of the review and engineering process for land development to make sure that the town fulfills its obligations for its comprehensive transportation plan, its comprehensive utility plans. So staff is intimately involved in making sure that the development community builds the correct infrastructure for the project. And with Chatham Park, you know, part of their public facilities element talks about multimodal transportation and alternate modes of transportation, such as the greenways that aren't typically thought of as a transportation device, but do serve that for people who can now walk through the backyard instead of and get to a business or to a grocery store, as opposed to getting in their car and driving out on the roadways to get to the same place they could walk to through the woods, so to speak, and take a 3-mile drive to get there by the automobile. So the multimodal aspects of Chatham Park are a real benefit to the town, and I think will be a similar model that the town will adopt for its complete streets, cross sections that would include sidewalks, bike lanes, multimodal paths, and the like.
I think I got a message that Commissioner Kyle Shipp, are you still on?
Sorry, yes, I am. I thank all of you who are currently serving or who have served for doing so. I certainly have some insight into the time commitment required, so appreciate that. I want to give you an all opportunity to say, over your tenure, what are the 2 things that you're most proud of in your tenure of public service? And then also to all of you, thank you for being willing to run again or for the first time. And what do you expect 4 years from now will be the 2 things that you're most proud of?
I'll be happy to jump in.
I'll go ahead and jump in.
Go ahead, Jim.
The first thing that I'm very proud of is being able to facilitate and lead the way to a new town management that is creative, aggressive, gets the job done, and is a part of the community. That's the number one thing that I'm proudest of. The second thing I'm proud of is to have served both on the additional elements and the Affordable Housing Task Force, because to me, if we build a community that only a section of our population can afford to live in, then we have failed miserably. And so I'm proud of the work that I have done with Michael and Pamela and the county and developers and so on, in really understanding and trying to bring to bear a workable, affordable housing program for Pittsboro. And as Michael said, this is being struggled with all over this nation. And when I had a chance to talk to Congressman Price at the water plant, I took the opportunity to tell him how important affordable housing was. And if they really wanted to, in Congress, do some things to help that matter, they would liberalize the tax credit program that currently exists for building affordable housing and make it easier. Right now, you can only have one project per county per year. And if you really want to do something with affordable housing, that needs to be liberalized. And he said that he would definitely take that back to Congress and see if they couldn't make some progress, since that seemed to be a bipartisan issue, to affordable housing solutions across the country.
And I'll add that one of the things I feel very pleased with was the kind of diplomacy that I could put forward on the board, not only with the board members and the general public that attended the board meetings, but also just generally in the community. I think you build community with diplomacy and civility, and that was certainly one of the highlights of what I think I brought to the town during my 4 years. The layer of complexity, I must admit that I never thought that I would know more as much as I do about the water and sewer systems and stormwater and infrastructure that we have struggled with over the last few years. Just as I came on the board, the sewer line, force main line to Sanford was just being approved. And to show you how complex those issues are, the first shovel of dirt has not yet been dug for that line to Sanford. It's a 20-some-odd million dollar project, and it just takes time, and it takes dealing with bureaucracies in such a fashion that you have to be a bit patient and continue with a smile and a continued diplomacy. So thank you.
I'd like to jump in and say that I am most proud. I think two things: my work in helping Chatham Park become the community that it's going to be, and that I think will be very good for Pittsboro. I've worked since 2013 with the town staff and the folks at Chatham Park in trying to frame the requirements of Chatham Park. It includes public art, it includes affordable housing, it includes multimodal transportation, it includes a lot of the things that I see as emblematic of a healthy community. Greenways, parks and recreation, schools. So I'm really proud of my contribution to that effort. I'm also very proud of continuing to see growth in Pittsboro based on sewer capacity. 2009, when I first joined the board, there was a moratorium. We didn't have any sewer capacity. By training, I am a land planner and a partner in a firm of civil engineering. And through that knowledge, was able to point out how the town could stretch its limited sewer capacity to allow growth to continue and not shut down the town of Pittsboro because of no sewer. And here we are 12 years later, and we are still limping along, but I'd say very successfully. There's been very positive growth. Of course, Chatham Park is going to help us solve the problem and give us a little bit of breathing room, but we're going to have to continue to do that. I'd say a third thing that I'm very, very proud of is my work with Main Street Pittsboro and the Pittsboro Business Association. in recognizing, since we were inducted into the program, the Main Street program in 2011, that Chatham Park is both an asset and a liability for our downtown. I think they're going to bring a lot of people to downtown, and I don't think they can replicate downtown. Downtown Pittsburgh is an exceptionally special place and a real attraction. And I've been advocating for years for the businesses down there to take advantage of what's coming their way. I often talk to, or I use the phrase that customers, not residents, when I'm talking to the Business Association. And we've done a lot of really nice things downtown Pittsburgh to make it an attractive place in preparation for the additional folks that are coming to town. So I'm very proud of that work as well.
Okay, in reference to what I'm proud of, I'm certainly proud to have been and honored to have been the commissioner for all of these years. That people have that type of belief in what I can do for the town of Pittsburgh. Because when I initially ran, I ran as the P candidate, and I will always remain the people's candidate because I represent, public service is what I do. And I represent the individuals in the town of Pittsburgh. And then again, it goes beyond the town of Pittsburgh, because what you do in the town of Pittsburgh also has effects on the county, the state, and the federal government. So you try to go on and represent people to the best. In doing that, I interact with the citizens. Downtown is just such a great place to go. During this pandemic, of course, I haven't interacted a lot with the merchants downtown because of those particular things which have gone in reference again, this pandemic. However, to the merchants, talking to them, seeing, and they're saying, oh, you're so-and-so. Yes, I'm Pamela Baldwin. So talking to them about what they need, what they like, what they dislike, just giving me general information, just being happy that you took the time to go in and talk to them. I think that's a great thing. People see you in the grocery store. They may give you recommendations on certain things. That's important. So basically, it doesn't have to be in a particular formal type situation, but it's always important to keep in touch with the citizens. And in addition to that, I've served as the Triangle J Council of Governments as chairwoman, which means that I interacted regionally with other counties, other elected officials in towns, counties, and it was just such a tremendous opportunity that I was exposed to through the town of Pittsburgh as their representative. So those are some of the most important things that I've done, and I will continue to represent, if I'm elected this year, the town of Pittsburgh to as full as I possibly can, to the best of my ability.
If I could, I would like to just chime in with one more, and I raise it because it's controversial. As you probably know or may not, a while ago, under the emergency powers that were granted me by the Board of Commissioners at the beginning of the pandemic, I issued a new mask order. And I know that some people were very upset. Other people were very happy that I did it. And I am proud that I did it because Commissioner Baldwin and I looked at the numbers almost every 2 times a week, and we saw the numbers climbing. And what was really scary is we saw the numbers climbing in surrounding counties even faster than we were in some instances. And those people come here and do business in our stores, and they go to places to eat here. And I reached the conclusion that our primary role in government is the health and well-being and safety of our residents. And that if this action would prevent even one person undergoing the rigors of COVID or perhaps dying from it, or if one child who cannot be vaccinated yet is saved from the fate of COVID, that it would have been worth the decision regardless. And I still to this day believe it was exactly the right thing to do. I'm looking forward to the time when Pamela and I look at those numbers and can say, hey, we don't need that anymore. And I'll be more than happy to cancel that mask mandate when that happens. But at any rate, I felt the need to, since we were talking about things we were proud of, I am very proud of that. Thank you.
If I might answer Mr. Ship's question also. Since I obviously can't talk about what I've done yet, I'd like to think that my two proudest accomplishments would be the ability to say that I paved the way for existing residents to feel like they had a sense of inclusion in our town's discussions as a whole. I'd also like to discuss and address issues of racial disparity. A really easy example of that is the redlining of neighborhoods here in Pittsboro. Both Fire Tower Road and East Cornwallis, I think fit that bill. We can't move forward as a robust town and as a destination unless we do it together.
Thank you. Jill Coro, I think you have a question.
Yes, obviously the locally owned businesses typically employ a great many of the people in this area. And I'd like to hear from you in terms of what you're prepared to do to boost local employment.
You know, one of the requirements that we made when Chatham Park came in was that we required a certain percentage of local businesses to be involved in various parts of Chatham Park, like the arts community and construction jobs were favored to be allocated to local people to the extent that it was possible. And I think that one of the things that is most important about Chatham Park is its promise to have clean, high-tech industry at some point, which is going to be the real key to being able to create a town that will support the small businesses downtown and yet have employment centers right outside of the traditional legacy town. I had 3 children, none of whom work here in Pittsboro. I would be so pleased to have job opportunities here that would create additional needs for small businesses downtown, as well as housing. And I feel strongly that allocating and favoring local folks for arts and construction is something that could help build Pittsboro across the board. Thank you.
Well, I think it's, you know, one of the things that's kind of a two-edged animal in some ways is Chatham Park is going to provide a lot of jobs. There's no doubt that the commercial side of that is showing that with what's going on in Mosaic right now and will continue to go on. The issue is that some of those jobs will be well-paying. Some of the medical jobs, for example, will be very, very well paid, but there'll also be a lot of lower paid jobs that will come along. And these will be in sometimes in the wait staff at restaurants and in receptionists at say the hotel, or say the people that check you in at UNC when you're going in for medical treatment. And those will be lessons where affordable housing comes into place, and we work with that. But I think there's an opportunity with what's going on, looking ahead just a bit, for us to attract companies that will pay good money and provide good jobs for people that want to stay here in Pittsboro or come here to Pittsboro to work. And I think we can do a lot in fostering that through the town, in conjunction with Chatham Park and through our Pittsboro Business Association. And so, yeah, I think local jobs, very, very important, but realizing that very, very close by, we're going to have some massive employers that, for example, going to be paying three-figure salaries to their employees, and they're going to be looking for housing here as well. So I think it's that kind of mixture that we'll be dealing with.
I've heard a lot of discussion in the past about a business park in conjunction with Chatham Park. I think this would provide a more viable tax base for Pittsboro, as well as the opportunity for our residents to work as well as live here in town.
Chatham Park is going to provide a lot of jobs, both temporary construction jobs and permanent jobs. And they have chosen a path through the permitting and approval process that is required of something that suggests they want to develop 7,000 acres underneath a master plan. And they've got the wherewithal and the ability to go through that process. But our small businesses, they don't have that. And I think key to creating additional jobs for our local businesses and our local residents is to have a permitting environment that is friendly to the small guy, the mom and the pop shop. I think it's critical. We can't only have opportunities for businesses to folks with deep pockets who can go through a cumbersome and lengthy process of permitting. And that's one of the things that I've tried to do through the UDO is to make a more progressive ordinance that recognizes the need for small town or small businesses, and for a process that doesn't require them to spend tons and tons of money on architects and engineers and contractors. So I think streamlining the process for small businesses is key. And it's not sacrificing quality. It's clearly writing the regulations and the rules and following them, saying, if you do this, this is the outcome. Make it known, make it reliable, make it predictable.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mary, can I answer that?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to add something to that because basically everyone heard the different things that can be done. Of course, there is Chatham Park, but I, again, go to the community colleges. A lot of times there is opportunity. There are very smart students there and they're learners. And there's always an opportunity for them to be able to be incorporated in the local employment. So I think a lot of times we need to go look at our great community college and see what they can do in reference to being able to fill that particular void, as well as our economic development team. That is something that they do as well. So we need to work more with them to see what type of things we can put, what type of employers there are, and how we can match those employers with the jobs.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, I guess if there's no other questions. Ernie, do you have any?
There are a couple of questions, but to be honest with you, I think the answers would probably take us to about 5 o'clock. What I can do, I will capture those questions. I can send them to you, and then if you'd like to forward them to the candidates, we might be able to do something with their responses so that people are aware of their thoughts and positions on them.
Okay, that's great because it is 3:50. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here this afternoon and good luck with the election.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
Mary.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Now, members, I need you all to stay on.
Okay. Thank you, Mary.
Okay, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.